What's up, guys? It's Steeless here inside the beautiful Lights Hope Chapel, ready to bring you another class overview, this time taking a look at one of the most popular and requested classes, or specializations I should say, that is coming in World of Warcraft Legion. That is the Retribution Paladin. I have loved Retribution Paladins for a very long time. It is the second class I ever made in World of Warcraft after a Druid. I'm going to be honest with you, I made one completely off of the fact of back when Paladins were Alliance only and Shamans were Holder only. I saw a Ret Paladin, which was rare back in the day to ever see a Ret Paladin. They were pretty much all holy. Come out and just demolish a shaman who did not know how to deal with a Ret Paladin because, I mean, he'd probably never seen a Ret Paladin before. So, I've always kept a close watch on Paladins each expansion, and I will say in this one I am really excited with where they are going, with the changes that are coming. Now, for the most part, the playstyle will remain the same. In this first video, we'll be looking at the abilities for a Retribution Paladin. We'll be looking at the removed, changed, and new ability, as well as the artifact weapon, which is the Ashbringer. I'm going to get a lot of hate for saying this. This is one of the most boring artifact weapons, and it's for one reason specifically only. And we're talking about the base weapon. This is a weapon that has been in the game since, I think, vanilla. It is old. It's old in its texture and everything, and as cool as it is lore-wise to have the Ashbringer, it's just kind of old and it feels a little recycled. The different versions and different iterations that you'll be able to make off of Ashbringer, I'm sure will be awesome. They will no doubt be awesome, and I'm excited for that. But in terms of the base version, there are much cooler artifact weapons out there because they're more up to date and they have more pixels and so forth. So even though they have touched up this new Ashbringer that you will be using, some of the other artifact weapons in the game, such as the Prot Paladin one that you can see on her back right there, which is really cool looking, which we'll get to in the Prot Paladin video, are much better. So I know I'll get a lot of flack for saying that there, but I'm sure the Ashbringer will turn out really cool once we start getting into the different types of transmogs that you'll be able to do for the Ashbringer to kind of make it unique in your own playstyle. So, in this video, looking at remove, changed, and new abilities, and then we'll be looking at the artifact weapon Ashbringer and its talent tree, what it will be bringing. In the next video, we'll be looking at the PvE and PvP talents for a Retribution Paladin. So let's go ahead and get straight into it. Paladins have lost a lot of abilities, pretty much just universally across the board. The major changes you're really going to see in Red Paladin is that Blizzard has done a lot of work in making new melee spell animations and sound effects and so forth, and you're going to hear that as I go throughout these abilities, and you hear them, and it sounds really cool what they've done. I really like them. And I think it's going to be fun, you know, just to have all these new melee sound effects. They'll get to ranged spell effects later. As you saw in the previous video, Elemental has a new effect for Lightning Bolt. I think that's like the first of their, one of the first few ranged abilities that's gotten kind of an overhaul of what they look like. They're going to be going through all of the ranged abilities, but for this expansion, at least for launch, they've really gone through the melee and given melee all new sound effects and kind of some animation. So you're going to notice that as we go throughout these. So let's go ahead and get into the removed abilities for a Paladin. There are some iconic abilities that are gone here. So if you're like a diehard Paladin and you just like love the lore and how Paladins have been played for a long time, or kind of the theme of a Paladin, you're going to be disappointed here. But for the most part, its playstyle has not changed. So, Hand of Sacrifice has been removed. It is no longer available to a Retribution Paladin. It is now only available to Holy Paladins and maybe Prot Paladins. I can look for that real quick right here. Yes, it is still available to Prot Paladins, but it is gone from Retribution Paladins. Divine Protection. This one's a little strange, but Divine Protection has been removed. It is still available to Holy Paladins, and I believe also, once again, it should be available to, it's not available to prop paladin. So it is a holy paladin specific ability now. It has been changed a little bit from what it used to be, so maybe it won't be so much of a loss, but it has been removed. Emancipate has been removed. This one hurts. I will say that this one hurts because as a PvPer, Emancipate was kind of like the compromise to deal with the fact that Ret didn't really have a charge. Ret still doesn't have a charge, and it really stinks not having that there. So it's really a bummer that that has been removed. There's some new stuff added in, and we'll see stuff in the PvP talent tree to help out with Paladins, but overall it really does hurt not having Emancipate on your bars anymore. Exorcism has been removed. This is going to be interesting. Some of your old holy power generators are being removed from the game, and you will no longer have them. However, I will say they are being replaced with much better holy power generators. Exorcism was a long-range holy power generator, so it was nice to have, considering, if you ever got out of range. The new one that's being replaced doesn't necessarily have the same range. We'll get to it in a bit when we get to new abilities, but for right now, just know that Exorcism is gone. Blessing of Kings, Blessing of Might have been removed. Anything that basically was a stat increase has been removed across the board, so I really wouldn't worry about that being gone. Unfortunately, there's something to kind of take its place. I'm really irritated with this because I really, really hate in a battleground having to buff myself before I go out. And Paladins are going to be the only class that, Ret Paladins specifically, are going to be the only class that still has to do that, which kind of sucks in my opinion. But that is the case at the moment. Hammer of Righteousness has been removed. Really not a big deal for Paladins, if you ask me. On the PvE front, I do understand how it can be a big deal, and it's frustrating that it is gone. However, I think you guys will be able to survive just fine without it. You should be okay. Hammer of Wrath has been removed. This one hurts a lot. I really did love having Hammer of Wrath. It was one of my favorite abilities. I loved, just kind of like doing enough damage and then kind of just walking away from the target after I'd thrown my my Hammer of Wrath from a long distance, and just knowing that it would kill them. And I remember doing that when I first started using Ret Paladins a long time ago. I think it was back in Burning Crusade, and it was awesome. And not having that anymore really does stink. They've got rid of all executes across the board, Kill Shot, Hammer of Wrath, you name it. The only one that is still left is Execute on Warriors, which I guess kind of makes sense, but it really does suck to see it go. Righteous Fury has been removed. Really, there's no reason for a Paladin to have a constant threat generator unless you're like trolling real hard. So there's nothing really wrong with Righteous Fury being removed. These next four are kind of the big deal, the iconic kind of ability being taken away. Seal of Insight, Seal of Justice, Seal of Righteousness, and Seal of Truth have all been removed from the game. Seals in general are gone. No longer are you going to have a seal active to activate Judgment. That whole interaction on what seals do, etc., has just been removed from the game completely. There's no reason for it anymore, and I personally, as someone, it's a passive buff, and really, if a passive buff goes, I don't really notice it very much, and so it doesn't bother me. However, if you're like diehard Ret Paladin and like the having seals on your bar really meant a lot to you, I can understand how this will hurt, but for the most part, they're not relevant anymore. There's no reason to have them there. There really was never seal switching like they'd always hoped for after they had gotten rid of, having to reapply the seal every time. There really was no seal switching, so it kind of stinks. I would have liked to see seals return on like a 10-second basis, like have them a shared 10-second cooldown, so you could like choose which seal for the next 10 seconds that maybe like you felt was the correct for the situation. I think that would be kind of interesting if they had done something to like keep seals a part of the rotation. It would have been interesting for PvP. I think for PvE it just would have been a chore and people wouldn't have liked it. And so I can understand that being gone. But for the most part, just know that seals across the board no longer there, and Judgment's just going to roll on as it is with just not having a seal active. You can just go ahead and judge someone no matter what. Turn Evil has been removed. It is gone from the game. Uh, Blizzard, this kind of went the way of Soothe. Blizzard kind of felt that there's no reason to have Turn Evil and Soothe, which was a Druid ability. They only applied to certain NPC demographics, and so as such, they really felt that it was not needed in a Ret Paladin's kit or in a Paladin's kit altogether. Word of Glory is gone, actually across the board. It's gone completely, with the exception it still is a talent that you can grab as a Retribution Paladin. I can't remember if you can grab it as a talent as a Protection Paladin. I do not think you can, though. It is specifically now just for Retribution Paladins in the talent tree. Righteous Vengeance has been removed. These passives have been just removed off the board, so Righteous Vengeance has been removed. Sanctity Aura has been removed, which was just flat buffs, so there's no reason to have flat buffs anymore. And Supplication has been removed. That was kind of the sustain you had for PvE, I guess, like leveling. They feel that there's no reason to have Supplication anymore, so Supplication has been removed as well. That takes care of all the removed abilities for a Ret Paladin. We're going to start going into the changed abilities, and as I go through them, I will be showing some of them off because several of them have changed. They have changed visual effects, special effects, sound effects, so I'm going to be showing them to you so you guys see what has really changed with them. Hand of Freedom and Hand of Protection both have been renamed Blessings, so Blessing of Freedom, Blessing of Protection. There's no restrictions on the amount of blessings on a target anymore, so I can have both Blessing of Freedom and Blessing of Protection on myself. Now I want to show something right here. I can go up and attack a target with Blessing of Protection on me, so that is one of the new changes. You no longer are prevented from attacking when you use Blessing of Protection, which I think is awesome. In terms of Hand of Freedom, the only change that they've made here is that it now lasts 8 seconds up from 6 seconds. So, longer Hand of Freedom, and for Hand of Protection, it no longer prevents people from attacking. And then overall, they're now called Blessings, and there's no restriction on the amount of blessings that are on a target, which is pretty cool. Cleanse has been renamed Cleanse Toxins. This is to separate it from the actual cleanse that Holy Paladins have. So just to kind of emphasize the fact that you cannot get rid of magic effects, you can only get rid of poison and disease effects. That's just the change there. Crusader Strike now will have 2 charges. You will always have 2 charges on it. The cooldown still pretty much stays the same. And as you can see right here, you can hear the sound effects and whatnot of how Crusader Strike is. And as you can see, with the beautiful UI down below, you can now see your holy power generated. It is kind of light. I mean, when you step out of combat, it does kind of fade away. But you can see it's a really nice UI down there to kind of show, how much you have. So if you were someone who had to have an add-on to, have your health bar and your holy power somewhat close to your body, they now have actually put that in the game, and I really like it. I personally don't think I'll need to ever have some type of I've actually lived for a very long time without having that now, so this is just going to be an additive to make my experience even better, so that's pretty cool. Divine Shield no longer reduces damage dealt. The old Divine Shield would reduce your damage dealt when you actually activate it. That is no longer the case. Do you know that the Forbearance, I think it was an enhancement, the Forbearance that reduced Forbearance by like 30 seconds, has been baselined for all Ret Paladins, so that Forbearance is now down to the 30-second mark or whatever. And it says 20 seconds here. I believe there's actually an artifact weapon talent that reduces it another 10 seconds. That's really nice. Hammer of Justice, the only thing I need to tell you here is that it's got a new spell visual and sound effects, so I'll go ahead and use it right here. Hopefully, I'm going to come over here. Oh, that's a healing training dummy. Darn it. I cannot find a place that is not... people are attacking at the moment. Oh, it's a tanking dummy. This is going to hurt. Alright, here we go. I'm going to use it anyways. Actually, a tanking dummy might not actually work with it. So, I'm going to just have to go here and deal with Mr. Kayalan here, who's just attacking this training dummy for... I don't even know what he's doing. Let's go ahead and use Hammer of Justice here. As you can see right there, a hammer falls from the sky and stuns the target, so it's pretty cool. I really do like the sound effect change there. It really is nice to have. So, with that, let's move to Judgment, which also has a new spell visual. Let's go ahead and use this here before KLN starts going to town on these training target dummies. As you can see right there, I launch it. It hits the target. It's a larger hammer now, and it actually flips across to another target. It no longer requires a seal, as I mentioned before. Causes 20% increased damage taken from your holy power spenders for 8 seconds. So that's really nice. Its cooldown now has been increased, though, from about 5.3 seconds to 11.3 seconds. And it's not generating any holy power. So do take note of that. So before you had holy power generators in Crusader Strike, Judgment, and Holy Wrath. No, that's not correct. Exorcism. Those were your holy power generators. Now Judgment's been taken off the list. The Exorcism has been taken off the list. All you have now is Crusader Strike and one more ability that we will get to. But for the most part, Judgment has been removed. And so now you have to deal with the way it is now. I'm going to use it back from far so you can see, just what it looks like. And it ricochets off, judges the enemy, and up to 3 nearby enemies. So it does chain to 3 nearby enemies, dealing 97,000 holy damage and causing them to take 20% increased damage from your holy power spenders for 8 seconds. To give you a nice idea, 97,000 damage. Crusader Strike does 53,000 damage. Templar's Verdict does 114,000 holy damage at 3 holy power. So Judgment's powerful now. Just take note of that. Now, I'm not sure if the Judgment... In fact, let's see. Double check right here. Let me double check right here. Okay, yes. It does damage to everyone now. So, this is your new cleave, so to say. So, Hammer of the Righteous is gone, and your Judgment is not going to do a lot of damage. With AoE. As you can see, there was no damage drop-off from this. There should be no damage drop-off from this. It's just going to be straight damage, and then on top of that, you're dealing more damage from your holy power spenders because of it. So when you use Judgment, and then on top of that Divine Storm, you're dealing more damage, which is pretty cool. Going down the list, we have Rebuke. It no longer costs mana. Blizzard has really taken away mana cost for a lot of abilities. They want mana costs to be really focused on abilities that really are important. In this case, that would be something like your heals, so your flash heal. That would be an important mana cost spender, and it costs a lot. You will see my mana just jump down as I start using this. So they really kind of wanted to say, okay, your important kind of resource here is your holy power generator. And that's what you're going to have to deal with. Just so I don't get too far ahead of myself, I can't remember when it was added to the game that you gained 5 holy power up from 3. I can't remember if it was an enhancement or it was something that came in Warlords of Draenor. But just to cover all bases here, that's now baseline now. You just have 5 and everything costs 3, except for there are a couple of abilities that if you talent into, you can actually will cost all 5, but we'll get to that in the talent section. So the last thing that I need to say is Sword of Light, which was a passive. Its damage increase has been reduced to 5% from 30%. I honestly don't know why they haven't gotten rid of this. For most classes, they've gotten rid of the base just flat damage increases. So I'm not really sure why they kept that, but for some reason they kept it on Ret Paladins. I'll show it to you right here just so you know. Sword of Light increases the damage you deal with two-handed weapons by 5%. Maybe in these cases in which they kept this here for different classes and specializations, it's basically to say we really want you using two-handed weapons or so. It could be something like that. I'm not quite sure. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that that is the reason why that they put that in. So with that, there are a couple more abilities that I need to show you before we get into the new abilities that have changed visual. First is Consecration. Once again, Blizzard really likes the hammer falling from the sky thing. That's kind of their thing. They just love having the hammers constantly drop out of the sky. And be careful when you jump up in the air and actually use Consecration, because then the hammer doesn't want to fall. It still says I have Consecration up, but the visual didn't show up. So there you go. Hammer from the sky, really cool. So there's Consecration. Let me go ahead and build up so you guys can see the new Divine Storm. Gotta build this up here. We're at 3 now, and here's your Divine Storm right there. So there was actually a double there. That's going to be something that's in the talent tree, but it has changed. It's not nearly as flashy as it used to be. I did like it when it was super flashy, but we will use it again so you can see. As you can see right there. You get the bonus of seeing 2 of them because of the artifact weapon. It's one of the options in the artifact weapon for you to pick up. And then let's go ahead and show you Templar's Verdict, just so you can hear the sound effects and so forth. Once again, the little Ashbringer showing up is another artifact weapon thing. And I believe that is it for changed visual effects for abilities. My favorite is the Consecrate. When I first saw that, I had no clue what it was. And then I finally figured it out. I was like, wow, that's really freaking cool. So, with that, let's go ahead and look at the new abilities. First, Blade of Justice. This is the most important one because this is your new Holy Power Generator. It is a 7.54 second cooldown, so it's pretty low. It's more on the lines of what the old Judgment was. And you strike an enemy with a Blade of Justice, dealing 114,000 physical damage. It's a lot of damage. It's a 12-yard range, too. So whereas Crusader Strike, you have to be in melee range to get stuff off, Blade of Justice does not. As you can see there, a big sword just like shoots out, and you get 2 holy power out of it. Now, I will say, after using different abilities and so forth, I feel as though my holy power generation is perfectly fine. There is no problem with it. There are a few dry spells, but for the most part, I really have had no issues, no downtime. I haven't felt like there's significant downtime. There may be like a second or 2 of downtime, and that may irritate some people, but for the most part, between Judgment, which you need up to deal more damage with your Holy Power Spenders, and dealing, and then between Blade of Justice and your Crusader Strike, I feel like you have no downtime in terms of really making sure that you're constantly doing something as a paladin, especially if you're also putting Consecration into the equation when you're trying to just deal damage over time and so forth. And then you'll also have Wake of Ashes, which is going to be your artifact weapon ability, which we'll get to later. And then there's also talents that you can probably look to in the actual talent tree. So definitely it's great to have these different options here, and I personally feel as though there really is no kind of downtime, which is kind of important as a melee. I really hate it as a melee when I have downtime. So when I have something like an Assassination Rogue's a good example, maybe a little bit of Feral Druid, Windwalker Monk, I just can't stand downtime. So that's one reason I really still do like Ret Paladin. Frosty K's don't have much of a downtime. Enhancement Shamans, the new Havoc Demon Hunters, they don't really have downtimes, and so that's basically why they're my favorite melee specs over what the other ones are. Survival Hunter's another one with realistically no downtime whatsoever. So that's really great. Next new ability are these Greater Blessings. These are the blessings that piss me, that make me so angry. They really piss me off because I was like, yes, I no longer have to buff myself, and then they come up with the Greater Blessings. So Greater Blessings are 3 different blessings. They same icons as the old Greater Blessings. However, it's only done on 1 target, and they're all different. They're all completely different. So we're going to go through them. First is Greater Blessing of Kings. Places a blessing on an ally that grants them an absorption shield. It absorbs up to 32,000 damage and will be refreshed to full strength every 6 seconds, even if fully consumed. So this is very much like your... I can't even remember the name of it. I'm going to blank out on the name of this ability, and it's not a talent or anything, so I can't look back and try and find it in a talent. There's an ability that you had as a, I remember a prop paladin. In fact, I'm leveling up another paladin on another server, and I'm using it as a prop paladin right now. That basically gave you a shield very similar to this. And like it would only activate every 6 seconds. That's basically what this new Blessing of Kings does. So I put Blessing of Kings on myself. I do believe for you to bless someone, they have to be in your party. Because I've tried blessing other people. He's a horde, so maybe that was the issue. Yes, there we go. So I can put Blessing of Kings on this bro, and he is good. And actually I have Blessing of Kings on myself. So that's actually pretty cool, is you can trade off blessings all you want on these other players, and you know, put them on different players, and that's really cool. I only have Blessing of Might on myself, and I think that comes from the other guy. So that's really cool. This guy is able to have 2 Greater Blessings of Wisdom on himself. So maintain up to 3 of these Greater Blessings at one time. So that basically means if I want to, he's left now, so unfortunately I can't test it anymore. If he wants to, I can put 3 Greater Blessings of Kings on the same target. Which means that he will have 3 damage. I don't know how that would work exactly. Maybe that means that he will have 3 shields at 30%. I mean at 32,000 damage, absorbing 32,000 damage. Or it will absorb up to 96,000 damage every 6 seconds. I'm not quite sure how it'll work. Or it'll either absorb 96,000 damage every 6 seconds, or it'll have 3 charges of 32,000 damage that will come up individually every 6 seconds. That's something that would require some serious testing, and that would actually be pretty hard to figure out in testing how that would work. I'd probably have to actually go find a duel with someone to actually see how that would work. Even then, I don't think that would be a very good... Actually, what I'd have to do is I'd have to go into an arena skirmish probably to see how it would work and have some communication with the opposing team. The next Greater Blessing is going to be Greater Blessing of Might. Blesses an ally that gives their attacks a 10% chance to deal 30% additional damage as holy. You can have 3 stacks of this as well. I do not know if it's going to be a 30% chance to deal 30% additional damage as holy, or it's going to be a 10% chance to deal 90% additional damage as holy. I honestly could not tell you. But that is the change to, once again, you can have 3 of any of these blessings on a target at a time. So I can put, you know, this Blessing of Might on this guy, and if he puts another one, his own, on himself as a Red Paladin, he could have more on himself. So I'm not quite sure how that would work. Considering that I saw it as multiple buffs, like I saw Greater Blessing of Might on the last Paladin that was here, I saw Greater Blessing of Kings on the target twice, and then he had another blessing on himself. I think it was Blessing of Wisdom, which we'll get to in a second. I'm going to say for Greater Blessing of Kings, it's going to be 3 charges of blocking 32,000 damage. So you're going to be able to block damage a lot. Basically every 2 seconds, I guess you could say, you're blocking damage, which is pretty awesome. And then for this, it's going to be 10%. It'll end up being 30% chance to deal 30% additional damage as holy if you have triple of these on. Which leads us to the last one, which is Greater Blessing of Wisdom. Places a blessing on an ally that causes them to regenerate 1% of their maximum health and mana per 15 seconds. This one's a little bit easier. It should be just 3% of their maximum health every 15 seconds. That one will be pretty easy to recognize. So I really do like these blessings. Like, they've got some utility in them. And basically what you'll be doing in PvP is you'll be just blessing yourself with all of these. You'll just put all of these on yourself, 60-minute cooldown on all of them to bless yourself. It's, to be honest, it's really frustrating. I'm not a big fan of, really not a big fan of having to buff myself again. I was hoping that was be out completely, and it's not, so it's kind of frustrating for it to be still there. But 3 blessings on yourself is what you'll have to do in PvP to really deal some damage, and then you can go in there and start wailing away on targets and deal as much damage as possible. So that is the change that has been brought in World of Warcraft Legion for Paladins. They have these greater blessings. I lost one of them right there, and I do not know why. My greater blessing of kings has been removed, and I'm not quite sure why. That's really interesting. You can see right here, greater blessing of might hit training dummy for 6,500, so it hit there for a little bit of damage. Let me see if I can figure out real quick right here why I lost my greater blessing of kings. That may be a bug, and if it's a bug, they'll fix it, I'm sure, at one point. Maybe someone blessed me with another blessing, and it took away my blessing of kings, which could have very well happened, and then someone blessed themselves. That's probably what happened. Oh no, I just lost it right there. I lost greater blessing of might that time. So I'm not really sure what's going on here. It doesn't show how I'm losing it. So we will have to take a look at that and figure it out. I'm not quite sure why it's just dying away. It's probably a bug in the system. So we will see what happens later on. If I have to update and put a little message note in the video, I will do so that you guys know. But that is greater blessings. Let's move on to the other abilities that are available to a Ret Paladin. We have 3 to look at. First is Hand of Hindrance. This is kind of to make up for the fact that Emancipation is no longer there. And your snares are no longer there as much. It's instant 30-second cooldown, places a hand on enemy target, reducing movement speed by 70% for 10 seconds. This is honestly, I think, kind of unacceptable. You can see it right there. You have the snare. However, it's just, I call it unacceptable because yes, it's 70% slow, but you can take it off with no problem. Players should be able to get rid of it no problem. And that was always the issue before, was players taking it off, and everyone still has a pretty darn good snare in the game. And with Paladin still not having a legit charge, this is kind of frustrating. And there's some classes out there that have amazing sticking power. So the one difficulty with Ret Paladin is going to be sticking power, whether or not they're going to be able to stick to your target. And I hope that isn't an issue. But it's going to be something that we will have to monitor. The Ret Paladin community will have to monitor and make sure that it is not a huge problem in PvP. PvE doesn't really matter. You guys should be okay. Shield of Vengeance. This is a defensive cooldown brought in. 1.5 minute cooldown creates a barrier of holy light that absorbs 179,000 damage for 15 seconds. When the barrier is consumed, all damage absorbed is dealt as holy damage divided across all enemies within 8 yards. We'll go ahead and use this here. I don't think it actually will do any damage for the most part. Let's just take some damage here. Whoa! Okay, had to be careful there. Shield of Vengeance hit for 217,000 damage for the little bit that I did there. I was really scared for a second there that I was just gonna like blow myself up, and you guys would have had to laugh at my walk of shame as I walk back to my body. Definitely 19. As you can see right now, Greater Blessing of Wisdom is healing me for 1% consecutively. You know, every 15 seconds. It's slow. It's very slow. And, I mean, the buff is almost not even worth it. Every 15 seconds is so slow for 1% health. I mean, warriors have a buff where they gain, as long as they get out of combat, they get 5% of their health every 1 second to heal back up. So, that's really disappointing. And, hopefully they kind of do some changes around to make things better. The last ability to look at here, after that wonderful defensive ability, is going to be Retribution. When any party or raid member within 40 yards dies, you gain 50% increased damage for 10 seconds. This is so strong in a battleground. I mean, when someone dies, you can just go, just like ape on someone. Be like, you killed my friend, I'm gonna kill you. And that's what makes it awesome. A 50% damage increase is absurd. I wonder if you have like a bunch of Ret Paladins, this definitely is gonna happen without question. If you in a raid have several Ret Paladins. Let's just say this, okay? You have several Ret Paladins in a raid, and you guys are desperate for that last little bit. It would not surprise me if the raid is healed up enough to, if you've got a rebirth online and you're getting close to like a hard time limit on when you're actually due, you can you can let one of your players die. Just let them die. Say go in and like taunt the target, take damage, let them die, so that the Ret Paladins in your team get a 50% damage increase, and then, you know, rebirth them to get them back in there and heal up the rest of their raid for the final, like, few, like, you know, 10-15 seconds you have remaining to get the last little bit off. I can see that easily happening in a PvE setting for, like, the progression guilds that are trying to get that last little buff off. That's only in a controlled setting, and if they were, you know, it would be very, very few situations in which that could actually happen, but it's something that could happen. But this is really cool, definitely in a PvP setting, you know. Anyone within 40 yards dying, and you're just like, ugh, and you you basically just kind of go out there and kill everyone, which is awesome. So that's all the abilities for a Ret Paladin. Changed, removed. The biggest thing that's really going to hurt, that I believe some of it is rectified in the PvP and PvE talent trees, though not all of it. The biggest thing that really hurts is PvP. I think PvP and Ret Paladins have really been hurt. If you've heard stories about Ret Paladins being the most powerful on beta realms, that was sheer imbalance. That was sheer damage numbers. That was the only reason they were so strong. Once everything is balanced, I think they're going to find Ret Paladins in possibly in a bad position in PvP, and so hopefully there's some stuff there to kind of even it out and make it better. But for right now, things do look kind of dire for Ret Paladins. It is still one of my absolute favored melee classes. I like it much better than others, but its utility, as is always the bane with Ret Paladins, its sticking power and utility is the issue with Ret Paladins. So we'll see how it goes and see if when we get into the PvP, PvE talent trees, we'll see if we're able to recover through those trees to help out the Ret Paladin. So with that, let's look at the artifact weapon, which is the Ashbringer. The first ability that you're going to get is going to be called Wake of Ashes. You lash out with Ashbringer, dealing 141,000 radiant damage. Sometimes I have to sit here, and when they say radiant, I have to like think like, what blazes is radiant damage? It's always going to be some kind of double type of damage, so that, you know, if someone's immune to, like, you know, lunar damage, they're okay on the nature damage side of things. I'm going to guess that radiant damage is going to be fire damage and holy damage combined together. That is my guess. So 141,000 radiant damage and an additional 195,000 radiant damage over 6 seconds to all enemies within 12 yards in front of you, and reducing movement speed by 50% for 6 seconds. So it does have a snare to it. But it's another 30-second cooldown. So you have two 30-second cooldown snares. Demon and undead enemies are stunned for 6 seconds if struck by Wake of Ashes. Really, this is, I guess, just kind of paying a little respect to how paladins used to be really broken and overpowered to demons and undead, if you remember the good old days with Wrath of the Lich King. But for the most part, I think that's the only reason it's there. So I'm going to go ahead and use it here. You can see it's a nice little burst in front of you. Does a ton of damage. And then the damage afterwards. And then you can sit in here and start doing damage. So it is a really nice ability to have. With that, let's go ahead and take a look at the actual talent tree. You will be starting here with Wake of Ashes. And we're going to actually kind of start on the right-hand side here and move to the left. To show all these abilities. So we'll start with the Epic Portrait. Ashes to Ashes. Wake of Ashes also generates 5 holy power and causes all enemies hit to burn for 195,000 radiant damage over 6 seconds. So the extra 195,000 radiant damage comes from this talent. Like, you actually have to have Ashes to Ashes for that to actually happen. And it bursts up all that holy power I have there. And I just wasted a holy power charge right there. So as you can see right here, I can burn it all the way down, and then I can use Ashes to Ashes and like bring myself up to max which is pretty cool. Next option here is Protector of the Ashen Blade. Reduces the cooldown of Blessing of Protection by 30%. So that means it's down to a 3.5 minute cooldown. Might of the Templar. Increases the damage dealt by Templar's Verdict by 6%. That's 3 ranks, so it'll be 2% per rank. This Protector of the Ashen Blade is going to be 10% per rank. 3 ranks there. Unbreakable Will. When unable to act in combat for more than 2 seconds, Ashbringer will break you free. Can only occur once every 2 minutes. So, this is powerful. This basically is a trinket. It's a trinket for yourself. As long as the CC is longer than 2 seconds. That's pretty strong. So that's one of the big things going for a Ret Paladin in PvP. It does not solve the issue of sticking power with a Ret Paladin, but this is really powerful. It's a 2-minute trinket for Ret Paladins only, on top of the trinket that you'll already have. So that's pretty cool. I'm sure there's going to be add-ons out there that's going to track this as well, because this will be something that people want to track. We have Righteous Blade. Increases the damage dealt by Divine Storm by 15%. That's 5% per rank. We have Endless Resolve. It reduces the duration of forbearance by 10 seconds. I told you about this, and here it is. The first ability that you will get is going to be Blade of Light. Increases the damage dealt by Crusader Strike by 15%. We have Deliver the Justice. Increases the damage dealt by Blade of Justice by 24%. Three ranks on that, so it's going to be, what, 8% per rank. Blade of Justice, of course, being your brand new damage dealer in Holy Power Generator. You have Healing Storm. I'm not gonna lie, this is in a really awkward position on the talent tree. But Healing Storm, Divine Storm also heals up to 6 nearby allied players for 32,000. So it's going to be kind of an AoE heal as well, which is nice. You have Sharpened Edges, increases the critical strike chance of Crusader Strike by 18%, so that's going to be 6% per rank there. You have Wrath of the Ashbringer, increases the duration of Avenging Wrath by 7.5 seconds, so Avenging Wrath is a 2-minute cooldown still, increases damage and healing you deal by 35%, but it's got a 27.5 second duration, which pretty much brings it to a 25% uptime, which is pretty awesome. You have High Lord's Judgment, increases the damage dealt by Judgment by 45%. So the reason why it's dealing so much damage is probably because of this talent right here. 3 tiers on this will be 15% per rank. That's why Judgment deals so much. Look at that, I got a crit for two crits, 276,000 damage and 251,000. Yes, I was under the effects of Avenging Wrath, but dang, that's a lot of damage. We have Embrace the Light, increases the healing done by Flash of Light by 45%, so that's 15% per rank. Not honestly a big fan of this one. I don't know, maybe it's because I don't like off healing as a Ret Paladin. It feels awkward. Deflection reduces the cooldown of Shield of Vengeance by 30 seconds. That's going to be 10 seconds per rank. Shield of Vengeance is that your new kind of defensive ability that you have there. And then you have your last 2 epic portraits, which is Echo of the High Lord. Ashbringer mimics Templar's Verdict and Divine Storm, dealing 10% of normal damage. Really kind of small there. 10% of the normal damage of it. That's nothing. That's just like, here we're gonna add a flashy effect, and you're gonna like it. So that's really underwhelming, and by far easily will be the last talent that I go for. In fact, if I had to choose a tree, I'd probably take this this kind of loop around, starting with Blade of Light, and then working my way around up to Ashes, and then burning my way through here all the way to the bottom, which will be Divine Tempest. Ashbringer projects Divine Storm forward 20 yards, damaging all enemies in its path. Also increases the damage dealt by Divine Storm by 20%. Every time I use Divine Storm, I try to stay up close so that I can get this away. But let me go ahead and get close and show you. And now I'm going to step back, and you will be able to see Divine Storm launch forward. And you saw the extra there from that sad example of what the talent tree is for Ashbringer, the sad Echo of the High Lord. I mean, it really is an echo. I mean, it's a distant echo, if you could say. Divine Storm hits for 71,000 holy, 70,000 holy, and then the Echo hit for 7,000 holy. It's 7,400 holy and 7,100 holy, so that's pretty pathetic. Hopefully they bring some changes to that. Otherwise, that is everything for the changes to a Ret Paladin in World of Warcraft Legion. If you are a big fan of PvE Ret Paladin, I think you're really going to like the changes. I really do. But for PvP, things are a little worrying. We'll check the PvE and PvP talents in the next video. So hopefully we can get some closure and you'll feel a little bit better about it when we look at those talent trees. But definitely it's something to pay attention to. The one bright spot in all of this is that one talent that's actually in your artifact weapon, Unbreakable Will, which gives you kind of like a second trinket in PvP, which is pretty important. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I love my Ret Paladin still. I always hold on to it, hold it dear, and try and keep it leveled no matter what. And hopefully things will be working out in World of Warcraft Legion. And we'll see how popular this buff stacking for blessings happens. It'll be interesting for raids with multiple Ret Paladins trying to, okay, put these 3 on the tank, put these 3 on this character who does absurd damage or whatever. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting, a lot of fun to see how that works out. So, with that, I mean, just think about it. Greater Blessing of Might is going to be put on any character with a high attack speed. It's going to be pretty cool. So with that, that is the end of this video looking at the abilities and the artifact weapon. In the next video, we will look at the talents for a Ret Paladin and see how both PvE and PvP talent trees, how they will be affecting a Retribution Paladin in World of Warcraft Legion. So I will see you guys in the next video. Teal us out.